There's a couple of ways I could go about determining how far I need to move this support or spare tire carrier back. One of which is I could just do like this, drop the cable down, let it hang loosely so it's plumb, slid the tire underneath it so that the cable is centered in the hole, and then if I ran a plumb line down from above until it just touches the edge of the tire there, I would know that's where my outside of the edge of the tire currently is. Now I've got the bracket, the Steadyfast support there in place, and you can see it's completely in the way of where it needs to be on this thing. So that being said, I mean, one of the things I guess I could have done, they don't say this in the instructions, but if I had moved that connection point, in other words, let me show you on this one. So in other words, right now I've got that swivel clamp that the other end of this rod is attached to. I've got it in one of these rear feet holes. If I put it in the front foot hole, what that would do is that would kick that end of that pipe out towards the front quite a bit more, and that would have the effect of moving this over some, but I'd still be completely behind this part that the tire normally rests on, so I'd still be kind of out of whack there, so that's really not going to help us. So I've got this hunk of metal pipe, put the bottom edge of the pipe touching the tire. Using my small level, I see that I've got it perpendicular or plumb right there. So now I know that that spot on the inside of the pipe up there corresponds with where the edge of my tire actually sits right now. So if I take a measurement from the inside edge of that pipe over to where this cable is right now, that should be half the diameter of my tire, which I checked my tire diameter, and the outside diameter of the tire is just about 31 inches. Half of that would be 15.5 inches. Alright, so I just took that measurement that should be half of the 31 inches, which would be 15.5, and I got 14 inches. So something's wrong here. So I just double checked, and then I realized, I just checked this tire. This tire has an outside dimension of 28 inches, half of which is 14. This tire is a 225/75 R15. These are the stock wheels on my trailer. 235/80 R16s. So that's an undersized spare. Which, I mean, I understand you can sometimes you have an undersized spare tire in a car, but there you're really only changing one tire on one corner, so that one side will ride just a little bit lower, which will be negligible when you're in an emergency situation where you're using a spare anyways. What I don't get is why would you want to put a 15-inch wheel on the same side as, I mean, we're assuming one of these blows, you put a 15 on there and a 16 over here? That seems weird to me. But hey, maybe that's just what they do. Back to the problem at hand. So for my calculation purposes, that all works out. So it's 14 inches from the edge of the tire to that cable. So now I can figure out how far I need to move this by taking a measurement from that cable to the inside of that bar. Alright, so I get almost 6 inches, but I'm going to use 5.5 as my number because I want to have a little bit of clearance so that this bar isn't rubbing right up against the tire. So if I take 14 inches and I subtract 5.5, that gives me 8.5 inches. So that means if I move this spare tire carrier back 8.5 inches from its current position, that should work. Well, wouldn't you know it, 8.5 inches back from there puts it pretty much on the back edge of this square tube that's welded, or this is a C-channel that's welded to the bottom of the floor here, and is what the tire bumps up against. So that's not good, unfortunately. Another way I could have done this measurement, by the way, is I could have just taken my tape measure, touched from the inside here, ran the tape measure out 14 inches, saw where that ended up here, and then add whatever clearance I wanted between the edge of the tire and there. Which when I do that, I still get the same problem. I'm back here. So question is, could I mount the spare tire carrier to this? Well, if I drill holes and mount this to this, I will drop my spare tire and will end up riding this much lower, which is 2 inches lower than it rides now, which is not great. So right now, with the trailer on the hitch, I've got the trailer, I've got 22.5 inches between this bottom edge and the ground. Tire is 9 inches high, so I subtract the 9 inches. That's 22.5 minus 9. That's 13.5 inches of clearance between the bottom edge of the tire and the ground. If I drop 2 inches off of that, that'll be 11.5 inches of clearance. Almost a foot of clearance between the bottom edge of the tire and ground, which doesn't sound too bad. Well, I'm here inside the front cargo bay. These are the bolts that are holding that spare tire carrier up right now. And I'm just looking at what I've got for room. I can go towards the rear here before I end up. This is the I-beam that goes across. So if I want to avoid having to drill through that and mount it to that, I'm looking at about only 8 inches that I can move those bolts back. Well, that's more bad news because that's actually not an I-beam up there. That's a C-channel. This is the back of the C-channel right here. So I've got to try and be in front of this if I want to avoid having to go through that C-channel and the floor. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to relocate the anchor point over there on that foot. In other words, right there where this is hooked onto, I'm going to move that to the front one. In other words, instead of having this anchor here, I'm going to have it anchored here. I think I'm going to have to enlarge one of these holes. Well, I'm also going to have to loosen up those two bolts so I can lengthen this rod because it's going to be too short. I've just got it temporarily placed there now so I could get a measurement. What I don't like about that is that the instructions don't say to put it there. They say to put it on the back side where I had it so that the 2 points are tied closer together. In other words, so that that front to back sway arm or stabilizing arm is attached right near where the this side one goes. Now, the other problem is that because I mounted this bracket here, now that arm's going to kind of go at a slight angle, which isn't ideal. In retrospect, if I had known I was going to do that in the first place, I would have mounted this bracket on this side of the foot, way over here in the front. It'd be kind of tight, but I could get it in there. And if I have to, I will do that. So the other issue that I've discovered with putting it in that position is because it's coming at a diagonal and because it's further over on the foot, this pipe is only extending into that pipe a minimal amount. The instructions say there should be at least 4 inches in there, but if I put 4 inches in there, what will happen is if I have to extend this leg over here really far, sorry, not this leg, that leg at some point really far, this end of this pipe right here might actually start to come out of the bracket over here. So you're gonna have to keep an eye on that. You know, if I have to, I could weld that joint right there. But don't get me wrong, I don't have the full 4 inches in there, but I've got more than enough so that both of those bolts are tightening down on the pipe. So that should be okay. And if I have to later on at some point, I will actually move this bracket over to the other side and then just plug those holes. But I went through all the work of putting this in. I really don't feel like redoing this just yet. The good news is my test trial right here shows that if I do put it in this position, it looks like I can move that spare tire carrier so that it's just up against the inside of this C-channel piece right here, and I'll have my 14 inches clearance. So I think this is going to work. Now it occurs to me now that once the installation is complete and a person were satisfied with the operation and all of their adjustments, there's no reason why you couldn't take this apart, note where the marks that the bolts made are on the pipes, and use those marks to actually drill 2 holes in the inner pipe. And then what that would do for you is that would keep, actually probably just do 1, and then 1 bolt would actually go right into the pipe and really lock this in case you were worried about this loosening up and moving. Alright, I'm now drilling the holes through the equipment floor, the storage compartment floor, to relocate the spare tire carrier. So what I did was I measured off where I want to put the first hole this way, drilled the hole, temporarily put a bolt through here so that I could put the carrier up into position so I can mark the location of the second bolt hole. Alright, now I was just about to raise the spare tire up into position, and then I remembered I've got to come up with some kind of a spacer here to make up for the fact that the tire is no longer going to bump up against this 2-inch deep piece of steel they put in here. On the back side, this one is still going to be in position where I think it's actually going to work, so all I really need is another piece here. And since I've already got those 2 holes, the old holes from the carrier that are there, and I was going to have to find something to block those anyways, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a block of wood and have a couple of screws come down from the inside through those existing holes into a block of wood, and that block of wood will act as my spacer. And I'm thinking of using a 2x4, piece of a 2x4, even though dimensionally that's only 1.5 inches thick. The only thing that's going to end up being an issue is that the tire will be tilted slightly, but it'll still be secure. So I've got a piece of pressure treated 2x6 scrap that I had. It doesn't look pressure treated because it's kind of sun faded, but it is pressure treated. That'll help it from rotting, although it shouldn't really rot for years considering it's not really going to get that wet. And then from the top side here, what I did was I drilled one of the holes into the pilot holes into the board, and then I held the board up and I started to screw. I've got a couple of these bugle head screws. They're old ones, but they'll do a good job of holding that up. And what's nice is they're going to be almost completely flush with the floor once I tighten them. Alright, so now I've got my wood block mounted, and those 2 little screws might not seem like much, but the reality is they're there just really to hold the block in place so it doesn't fall down when you lower your spare tire, which hopefully isn't very often. And secondly, also just to keep it from being able to move. If this block was just in here loose, the tire would kind of hold it in place, but vibration might cause it to shift out of position. So that's why those don't have to be big heavy-duty screws or bolts. Alright, I'm going to have my assistant go over and crank up the spare, and we'll check it out. Okay, that should do it. Well, how you doing, everybody? It's been a few weeks since I finished installing the Steadyfast system on the Sierra, and I've been camping. Actually, it's been more than that. It's been about a month. I've been camping a couple times now with the Steadyfast system installed, and I'm happy to report it is working really well. It is making a real big difference. I still am using this front tripod under the pin box.
it's funny, when I first installed the front tripod under the pin box to help with the stabilizing the trailer, it really didn't do much at all. Now I'm not convinced that it isn't helping when we've got everything down and ready to go. I've read other testimonials by people who said that they sold their tripod after they put the Steadyfast on because the Steadyfast worked that well. But I think that there is a little bit of an improvement even over what we've got going. Of course, our trailer has the bunkhouse over the front here. So the kids are doing all the jumping up and down right up here in the front, right over this area. So maybe that's why it might make a little bit more difference for my particular application. Like I said, everything's working out pretty good. I did have a clicking problem in the rear. It was just a slight clicking noise, and I ended up figuring out what that was, and that just ended up being that I needed to tweak the tightening of the joints on the bottom here. I'll show you those now.
Alright, so here's what I'm talking about. These bolts and nuts right here, and these small ones right here. These small ones more so. If you, I tightened up the back ones because I was having a clicking noise when the trailer would rock, and I think I traced it to right here. Well, I actually don't have that end locked, so you're actually here. A lot of that noise you're hearing is that jiggling over there, but you can see it. It's very faint, almost imperceptible. More so on this one. It's moving back and forth a little bit. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to snug these up more than I had them. And if I have to, I'll even wait until I have this up, because I can't tighten this one because the head of the bolt is underneath the foot. So when this is raised up, when it's on the truck and this is raised up, I'll get to the bottom of those. But that's already a little bit of an improvement. So that's basically the only housekeeping, so to speak, that I can think of that I wanted to get done. Complete this install. Oh yeah, I did have one other important step that I've got to do. Got one other issue. So the one other thing I need to take care of is this is something that was brought up by somebody who posted a reply on the forum, on the thread in the forum that I had put up regarding the installation of this. And it was basically, it was a warning letting you know to make absolutely sure that those locks, those big wing nuts, are unlocked before you try and retract or extend your landing gear. Your power landing gear switch is right here, and the problem is that if they're down like they are now and you're deciding you're going to pull out, and you know, maybe it's raining and you're trying to get out of the campground real quick or whatever, and you hook up and you come over here and you hit your retract button before you unlock those locks, what can happen is, because that now can't, this bar now can't move, as it moves up, that's going to put a force on the bottom of that leg going that way, which is going to have the capability to tweak, bend, or move out of whack your landing gear, and could really screw things up on you. So the company, they provide you with 2 stickers. I actually accidentally creased these, but they provide you with 2 stickers, and you put one right here, right next to your switch. And the idea being is that you can't really reach for your switch without noticing the sticker as and that's supposed to be your reminder to unlock those locks. So they give you 2. Not sure if they just figured you might lose one, or if they just want you to put another one. I guess I could put the other one up here next to my, this is where all of my load capacity and all of that happy information is. So put one there, and I'll put one there. I'm not going to do that right now because I need to wash this, wash the trailer since we got back. But anyways, bugs are biting pretty bad out here. So we're going to call this project done, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video series. Hope it wasn't too boring. I know it a little drawn out at times, but I just kind of wanted to show that you know, what's really involved in putting this in. It's not a horrible job at all.
and I am very satisfied with the performance of the system. Take care.